So I'm going to share a file. If you're watching this virtually, I'm going to share a file so you can follow along with everybody who's here in the studio audience. And if you have questions, you can submit them here through the chat on Facebook. And we're going to get started here in a second. Usually, I confess, I have the assistance of some very able-bodied people. Tonight, they have exams. Okay, that is the class material. Okay, so everybody, here's a sheet. And so before we dig into the halacha of how to make our homes kosher for Passover, I just want to ask a question. Why do we bother? Why do we bother? Isn't kashrut enough? Isn't it enough? Why do we have to go through a process of going through the house? And why does God care what we eat on Passover? I ask you, what do you think? Anybody have any ideas?
To clean the house to find the possible chametz.
Okay, we clean the house to find the chametz. Good, but let's remind ourselves, what does chametz represent? And why do we want to get rid of it? Right? So it's I don't say it's a tricky question, but it's a question we don't always ask ourselves because we're so concerned about not eating chametz on Pesach, but we sometimes forget why. And the Torah gives us a reason, but it's there's more to it, right? It says you shouldn't, just literally it says you have to remove chametz, but it doesn't exactly explain all the reasons why. Okay, but our sages have said that chametz is something which rises, and it represents the ego. And part of removing the chametz from our homes on Pesach and not eating that chametz for those whole time is to remind us about negating our own egos and putting our egos in check. Chametz is directly related to ego. And when a person has an inflated ego, they can't serve God. They're serving themselves. Now, the Jewish people are leaving Egypt. They've been serving the masters in Egypt, their taskmasters. And God wants to free them from this mindset of being slaves to the Paro. But it's very difficult to affect that change. And so the Jewish people have this lengthy journey and so forth. But how do you make this lesson stick through the generations? How do you make it stick? It's an incredible question. It's even it's a question that non-Jewish scholars ask Jewish people. How do they stay Jewish? How? It makes no sense. They've got no army, until very recently, no army. No defined borders. How did they stay? Well, one of the reasons was the creation of rituals that the Torah gave us that we would have in exile. And one of these is the purging of chametz from our homes on Passover to put our egos in check so that we can worship God better. And when we have a connection with God, that's what helps to ensure the ongoing of the Jewish people. When people stop doing Passover Seders, we're in big trouble. We're in big trouble. It's the most observed of all Jewish rituals, the Passover Seder. More people have a Passover Seder than go to shul on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur. And I heard this statistic before I became a rabbi. I believed it, but once I became a rabbi and we had a shul and I spoke with other rabbis about this, and we started doing the calculations, figuring out how many Jews are in Los Angeles versus how many people go to services, I don't even want to talk about it. Right? It's clear that Passover Seder is the thing that Jews do. Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur, if we're lucky, right? So all these rituals connected with Passover are essential to maintaining the Jewish people. Now we're going to get on to, fine, it represents ego, and it represents things that we want to eliminate in our homes. So the Torah tells us that we're not supposed to have chametz in the house, but it can seem like a very big challenge. First of all, it's not just, hey, welcome. It's not just food, but we're also worried about dishes, and we're worried about our ovens, and we're worried about our silverware. We're worried on, right? So how do we take the anxiety out of getting ready for Passover? So that's why I made this, what I just shared with everybody. That's why I made this guide, which is a concise guide for making your home kosher for Passover.
You have another one for me?
I do. So first of all, let's remind ourselves what is chametz, right? And what is not chametz. That's the first thing, right? Celery, not chametz. Beer, spirits, bread, crackers, cereals, these are all chametz. So as you see, Kabbalah also teach that we get rid of spiritual chametz, which are bad habits, selfishness, cynicism. And now Jews of Eastern European descent, so any of you are, well, on Passover, unfortunate enough to be Ashkenazi, we also don't eat rice, corn, legumes, and byproducts. We also do eat things like sesame seeds and poppy seeds and mustard seeds. But thankfully, we have horseradish. Quinoa, the quinoa is this modern phenomenon. Nobody ate quinoa in Morocco, Syria, Poland, Russia. Who had quinoa, right? Nobody. So what do you do with quinoa? So there's a lot of debate, but ultimately the scholars decided that quinoa is not kidney. So it is a pseudo grain that can bring unity to the Jewish people because everybody can eat quinoa. Now, also you should know that dust is not chametz, right? How much chametz in other words, we're supposed to clean, but it doesn't have to be clean in a way that you're going to be processing silicon chips, that there's going to be surgery here, and that it has
Quest chips.
Which one are those?
Or Quest chips.
Or Quest chips, right? What are in Quest chips? Protein chips. Very good. Okay, so here's our first step. The first step, just clean. Just clean the house like you would when you want to, your mom's coming over, or you got to impress somebody, like a date, or those are both good reasons. Now, check any place that a lazy bachelor could leave chametz. Right? Pockets, backpacks, purses. Check your closets. And if you have kids, you really have to go to town because kids can bring it anywhere, right? Kids or dogs can bring chametz in all kinds of places. Closets, bookshelves, under couch cushions is a very popular place for children to store Cheerios and other kinds of chametz, right? So when you do this kind of general cleaning, okay, you're going to eliminate most of the unwanted chametz in your house. Just a general cleaning. I didn't say steam the carpets. I didn't say wash the walls. I didn't say you have to get the curtains or the furniture dry cleaned, right? But I do recommend that everything that can be vacuumed is vacuumed. Anything that can be swept is swept. And this way, you have done your job. Now, question. What we're going to get to. Do you have to check? Just think about this one. Do you have to check places where you don't go? Like, underneath the refrigerator. So think about that for a moment. a good question. So now the next step, after you've done that, and I always advise people start from their bedrooms and work their way to the kitchen when they do this. You work your way to the kitchen. And the kitchen you do last. Now, kitchen chametz is more serious because we're not so worried that somebody's going to really accidentally grab some chametz from beneath the couch cushion and start eating it, right? Maybe a kid could happen. Kid, I take that. Kid could absolutely do that. But adults generally not. However, when you have chametz in the kitchen, it can accidentally get into your food. So that's why we're more stringent. So here's very easy how you do it. Put away your chametz dishes and utensils for all of Passover. When you do right, just doing that, just putting away your utensils and your dishes, you eliminate a big concern. Secondly, clean the kitchen like you would normally. After the kitchen's clean, we're going to now make it kosher for Passover. How do you do that? Wash down the counters and tables where you eat with some kind of cleaning agent. Doesn't have to be, it could be simple green or some non-toxic, but any cleaning agent. Now, stone counters can be koshered with boiling, not boring, sorry about the typo, water from an electric kettle. So if you've got a little hot pot and you're comfortable doing it, you can literally pour onto your granite counters the thing. Some people say that manufactured stone is good also. So Caesar stone and other kind of manufactured stone, because it is stone. So you could also pour those. Some people are more stringent and want those to be covered. Now, what I tell people is do not cover your counters or anything in your kitchen except for the stove with tinfoil. The tinfoil on the stovetop, it's a good idea. But tinfoil is the worst substance to use to cover your counters. Anybody want to guess why?
It rips.
It rips easily. Exactly. Tinfoil rips so easily. And it wasn't designed to be used that way. It was designed to just go over a bowl and stick it in the fridge, or to go over a turkey and put it in the oven. It was not designed to put up with any kind of friction, right? It's not, that's not. But you know what is really good for if you need to cover a table or your counters? Shelf liner. Don't unstick the back. Just tape it down with blue tape. Tape down shelf liner. And you can get pretty shelf liner. So it actually kind of looks nice. Now, that's the kitchen's almost done just by doing that. Next, clean the pantry. This is the best opportunity. Even people who don't keep kosher for Passover should do this once a year. Go through your pantry. When you go through your pantry, you find things that you forgot about. And sometimes you forgot about them for a long time, right? So you go through your pantry, you throw out everything that expired in 2019, right? You wipe them down. We like to put shelf liner on our shelves in the pantry. It's not a requirement, but it's just something that we do because we like to keep it extra clean on Passover, and we do it once a year. And next year we'll put new, liner down. Now you've cleaned the pantry. What do you do with the chametz food you find in the pantry? So I recommend that you take one shelf, two shelf, three shelf, how many shelves you have, that you can apportion for chametz, put all the chametz there, okay? And then leave some empty shelves for your Passover stuff. And we'll explain what to do with those chametz shelves in a moment. Next, let's go to the fridge. Every fridge needs a good cleaning out. You're just going to clean it very nicely. You can cover the shelves with wax paper if you want, but actually, technically, as long as you've wiped down all the surfaces in the fridge, it's kosher Passover. We take the extra step of putting the paper down in there. You do not need to do that. Shelves that you are keeping chametz dishes or actual chametz, what do? You paper them over or you tape them shut. So what I recommend is you do this right before Passover. You don't do it, a week ahead. So you start collecting all your chametz on a few shelves, and you have some newspaper or some other kind of paper. You're going to just paper over the shelves very easily. It just has to be there as a reminder, right? You're not trying to keep out thieves or anybody, just a reminder. Second of all, let's say you've got lots of shelves, I know we do in our kitchen, with lots of non-Passover dishes and plates and cookware. We don't want to go through the trouble of taking it all out and putting it away. So what do? Just tape it shut. Just tape shut all those places and write chametz on them. Chametz. Don't open chametz. Use blue tape because it won't leave a mark, and you are set. And the kids will stay out of it. You'll stay out of it. Okay. So now we have literally cleaned most of the house for Passover. Okay. Turn the page. Here are the little trickier things, but I've come up with my rabbis, come up with ways to make this as painless and easy as possible. Many people think you need a blowtorch to get ready for Passover. I'm not going to say that you shouldn't use one, but you absolutely do not need to use a blowtorch, okay? Okay, one of the most difficult places to keep clean is your oven. Unless you have a separate kitchen for Passover with a Passover oven, the oven needs to be clean. Here's how you do it. You're going to take the racks out and clean and with like an oven cleaner, okay? The inside and the outside. After you've cleaned it, you're going to let it stand for 24 hours. Then you're going to place the oven on high for 1 hour with the racks inside. A self-cleaning oven, okay? What do you do with those? So you still want to clean the oven with a cleaner. You don't want to let the self-cleaner do all the job. Then you just run one cycle of the self-cleaning oven. After your oven cools, there's one more step to do, which is cover the inside of the oven door with tin foil. And the way I usually do this is I take the tin foil, I pull the handles down of the oven, I place the tin foil down like this, close back up the oven, bring the tin foil around to the front, and if it won't stay there all the time, then you can just tape it there with like some blue tape, something that's not going to leave a bad mark on the oven. The reason why is because the glass on that oven is not going to get to the same temperature as the metal. It's a whole complicated thing, but the metal inside the oven gets kosher this way. The glass on the does not. Okay. The next hardest thing is the top of the stove. Okay. So the top of the stove, here's what you're going to do. First, just clean it. Get out all the schmutz, all the oil under the burners. If you can take off the burners and clean under the burners, that's good. And then what I suggest is use disposable foil inserts or tin foil on the bottom, right? So you've taken off the grates. Boy, it'd be nice to have an oven here, right? We'll go into the house in a minute and show you. Take off the grates, clean everything, okay? And you're then going to put boil water over every burner on high for 10 to 15 minutes to make the grates kosher for Passover. Okay, so that's how easy it is to make your oven top kosher for Passover. Yeah, question, please.
Electric oven.
Oh, like a glass top oven.
Yeah.
Okay, I know. Okay, so I believe the way we're going to do the glass top stove is the same, right? We're going to clean it, use a proper cleaner on it. Then we're going to put pots on it and boil those pots on each burner for 10 to 15 minutes until the whole thing has gotten very hot. Not so hot that you'll destroy it, but hot that it's going to get very hot. I also know that you need to be careful when you have those kind of stovetops that you use the right kind of cookware, because the wrong kind of cookware can damage the tops. So if you're out there and you've got one of those cooktops, I just put one in for my mom actually this past week. So I said, Mom, by the way, are your pots and pans good for this cooktop? They never had asked her that question when she bought it, right? Okay, so yeah, that's the way we're going to do it. And if I hear differently, I'll let you know. Okay. There's those induction tops, right? They use like induction. So again, those don't actually get hot. The top parts, right? Just the food inside gets hot. So those are really easy. We're still going to go through the motion, but you don't have to wait 10 or 15 minutes because the tops of those really never get hot. Okay, but we want to cover, this is the best and only use of tinfoil. Put it under the grapes. Okay? And you want to go out to the edge of the stovetop. Microwaves. Oh, stainless steel sinks and faucets. Okay. If you have a stainless steel sink, clean it. Don't use with hot food or liquids for 24 hours. And then the same pot used to boil boiling water on, just pour it starting from the drain upwards. Okay. And then you pour it over the sink faucet and everything. Now, what if you have a ceramic sink, like some of the nice, those French ceramic sinks or porcelain sink, really, right? Or maybe, old school. Those are more difficult because we can't kosher them in the same way that we would a stainless steel sink. So what we're going to do is we're going to suggest a couple of ways. The best solution is use a plastic container inside it with a hole in the bottom that you use as a substitute thing. It's a little awkward, I know. So if that doesn't work for you, one could, if that doesn't work, sometimes it's not that it doesn't work, but they don't always make plastic containers to fit your size sink. That's kind of what I mean, right? And it gets awkward. Like if it's too big, it won't fit in. If it's too little, it holds like 4 dishes. So if you can't find a good plastic insert, my next best recommendation is to buy a insert which is sits above the bottom of the sink. And then it's a little complicated, but I advise putting that shelf liner or some kind of other kind of substance just covering all the walls of the sink. We used to do this with shelf liner. We used to stick it down. It's a pain to pull it back off. But my chavrusa, my study partner, he uses electrical tape to hold down. Apparently it's very watertight, doesn't really let water in, and it's easy to take off. Right? Don't use duct tape. Right? That'd be the worst thing to use in your kitchen. So use electrical tape to hold down the plastic inside the sink. Microwaves can be koshered if they're metal. But if it's a plastic microwave, I advise going to Target and buying a new microwave for Pesach. We have one just for Pesach. We don't use it very often, but it's there to use. Metal microwaves, you can clean them, let stand for 24 hours, and boil a cup of water in them for a few minutes. Okay, so now pots, cutlery, plates, cups, it's ideal to have 2 sets for Passover use. Now, again, that's a lot. So I understand that not everybody might be there. So what I always recommend is, if it's too much for you to buy a whole new set of pots and pans that are milchik inflation, and cutlery and plates and cups, you can get away with buying one nice set that you use for meat and use disposable stuff for dairy. there's not really a way of getting around having meat and milk Passover pots unless you're willing to kosher your own stainless steel pots or become vegan or vegetarian, right? And not have anything. So let me explain how that works. Okay, so let's say you've got a really nice soup pot, let's say. You really want to use for Pesach. If it is Teflon coated or anything like that, sorry, we can't use it. But if it's a really nice stainless steel pot, all clad, something nice, you can actually kosher this for Passover. And you can also kosher all of your silver for Passover. Let's say you don't have a separate set. I inherited a set of Passover silver from my grandmother, right? You know, it's a silver plate, but it's nice. We only use it for Passover, but we didn't always have that. So what do? You make one pot kosher for Passover by boiling it filled with water. Let the water get to the top. And then we put in like a heated stone. How does that work? You put a stone on the burner next to it, get it hot, use some tongs, stick it in. The water flows over the edges. That's how you can kosher any size pot, okay? Any size pot. Now you have the kosher pot. Now you can kosher silverware for Passover. Get the water boiling again. Get either kosher for Passover strainer, like you only use for Passover, or kosher the strainer in the boiling water by dipping it fully, immerse all sides in it. And then you put the silverware in the strainer, lower it into the pot, and take it out. And now the silverware has been kosher for Passover. It's the same method you would use if the silverware had been used accidentally with non-kosher food. Same exact method. This removes any doubt that it is kosher for Passover. So that's why I say it is sometimes easier just to have a separate set. But if not, it's totally okay to kosher pots, not pans, but pots and silverware. Teflon, again, cannot be made. Ceramic, that new ceramic, like green stuff, I really like that. Ceramic non-stick coating, can't use it. You can't kosher those for Passover. China, ceramic, porcelain cannot, under most circumstances, be made kosher for Passover. Now, what do you do about glass? So glass made of, so what do we use today? We have Corningware, Pyrex, Duralex, Corel. Okay, you can kosher them like you would metal pots. So you can literally dip them into boiling water. They're not going to break. Regular glassware is tricky. And I recommend going to the 99-cent store, or not, you don't have to buy cheap stuff, but having glasses just for Passover. It's a little bit of a upgrade, but the process of koshering drinking glasses for Passover is quite time consuming. And in our day and age where you can buy these things for very cheap, it's just better to buy cheap ones and support the Jewish businesses. Oh, there we go. Now, any questions? I flew through that stuff, but you can see that if we could cover that in what, 25 minutes, 20 minutes, every step of koshering the whole house. Now, obviously, it takes a little bit longer to do it in person, but we can see that it is not so complicated. People make a much bigger deal about it. They get all stressed out about it. And I always have, my wife has always had the best advice, she says, to people. Judaism gives us this amazing opportunity to do spring cleaning. Most people would like to do spring cleaning, but they're not Marie Kondo and they didn't get around to it. And so now Judaism pushes us to do spring cleaning every year. And it helps in a major way if you approach it in that sense, that it's, yes, there's a spiritual side to it. There's the religious side to it of keeping the mitzvos. There's a spiritual part of getting rid of the chametz and other things we want to remove from our lives. And there's a practical element right? The Torah doesn't talk about the practical side of it, but it is very practical. You clean out your closets, you clean your house, you find stuff you realize you don't need, you can give to charity, etc. Okay, any questions before we get to the second part of the class? Yes.
So when we go and look for chametz, we're supposed to say bracha. Is the rest of the cleaning covered under that bracha, or is it separate bracha for cleaning?
Great question. So the question is, there in our television audience, you didn't hear, is there a blessing for cleaning, or is it covered in the blessing that we make when we do bedikas chametz? So there is no blessing for cleaning for Passover. And it came up in a fascinating class that I was part of. There's my yeshiva, Darchei Noam Chappelle's, has like an ongoing learning for us who haven't been there in 20 years, but ongoing learning for us. Every week we can tune into a very high level class. And last week, the class was about the concept of preparation for mitzvot. We don't think about it that much. We think, right, we light Shabbos candles. We, do X, Y, Z. We sit in the sukkah. Oh, great example. You sit in the sukkah. But as you know, there's a lot goes into sitting in the sukkah. You don't just, snap your fingers unless you're a superhero, right? A lot. So is all the preparation for the mitzvah on the same level as doing the mitzvah? I won't go into the whole details of it, but it is a fascinating discussion. And to say one point like this, clearly God wanted us to be involved in preparation for mitzvah. There's something about the preparation which is essential, because so many of the mitzvot in the Torah have preparation to them. All the big ones, Korban Pesach, Sukkot, Passover, right? So many of these big mitzvot, you just want to eat. Oh, you want to have a hamburger? No. You can't just have it. First, you have to chef the animal properly. Then you have to get the blood out. Then you have to cut off the parts which are not kosher. Then you have to salt and soak it. Right. So it's a lot of preparation. So clearly God has this idea of preparation is intrinsic to Jewish ritual and spiritual life. A little beyond our so, and the answer is there's no blessing on preparation in any of these things. And there is a big discussion in the Talmud. You make a bracha on starting to build the sukkah. Right? Do you say Shechianu or not? And the answer is we don't. Some people do, but you shouldn't say Shechianu on building the sukkah. What you should do is say Shechianu on something else and have in mind the sukkah. Okay? Because it's a question whether you can say a Shechianu on building the sukkah. So, any other questions on the koshering? On anybody out there? I'm pointing to this, but it's this. Okay. Anybody out there have any questions? No? It's that easy? Okay, well, I know somebody will come up and you can always text me. Okay. So I like to tell people it's not rocket science. It does take a couple of days. The bigger the house, the more people who live in it, gets a little bit more complicated. That's why it's so great to start when you're single or just married, because it's just the two of you and it's much easier. Okay. The next step of making your homes kosher for Passover is bedikas chametz, searching for the chametz. Now, on a normal year, the usual year, Passover does not fall on a Saturday night, right? But this year falls on a Saturday night. So it makes things a little bit more complicated. It's a mitzvah to check for chametz before the festival. This is actually a mitzvah, to search your home for chametz. And therefore, there is a blessing on this. We turn the lights off in the house. We use a candle. You can use a flashlight, by the way. And you check all the places where you live, and your home, and your office, your garage. and we do it the night before the Seder after dark. Now, this year we can't do it on Friday night, so we bump it up to Thursday night. We take 10 pieces of chametz and wrap it in newspaper or something like that, and place it around the home before the search. And we search every room. We have to search everywhere, every room, every cupboard, every place. You don't have to tear stuff out. It's not like you're ripping things out. It's not like a jewelry heist where you're looking for the jewels. We've been robbed before. And it's for you. You go home and like every cupboard has been, cleared out. I should have put a sign on. We have nothing to steal. They threw the Torahs out onto the floor. We had 2 Torahs in the house when they robbed us. They just took the Torahs, threw them on the floor, looking for the valuable items. So you don't have to do that. You just need to look, open the cupboards that are the ones you're going to be using. Places you're not going to be using for passing, right? The cupboards with the chametz in them, you don't need to check those. You want to seal those off. Okay? Now, after you do this, you're going to take those pieces and you're going to destroy them the next morning. But before you do that night, you want to say a prayer, which is we call it kol chamira, which is a nullification. Basically, the prayer says like this: any chametz I didn't find, it's ownerless. It means nothing to me, like the dirt of the earth. It means nothing to me. So this nullification means that even if, God forbid, there is some chametz that you missed, it's ownerless chametz. And ownerless chametz is not your chametz. If you share the home with non-Passover observant people, so you only have to make sure the area where you live is right. So let's say you have roommates, you have to make sure your room is kosher. But the roommates, that's their business. The next thing is we sell the chametz that we want to keep. Now, this custom originated because it happened that people would be concerned about buying any large quantities of chametz too close to Passover, because what are they going to do with it? So the rabbis, about 500 years ago, invented this sale, and it's a legal sale. And basically, the way the sale works is a non-Jew buys an option on all the chametz that the rabbi is selling on behalf of the community. And so since he's buying an option, he's not paying full price, right? He's buying an option to if he wants to exercise that option, he has to pay a much bigger price. But at the moment, he's buying the option. So it is all legally his. And we do this whole legal ceremony where he becomes the owner or she. Then at the end of the festival, we buy back all the chametz. We buy the options back from them, literally with money. We do this, and I actually made a website, Sell Chametz Online, where you can fill it in, and I will be your agent to sell chametz. Now, one more thing to do. You spend all this time making your home kosher Passover. You need to be careful that the food you bring into this kosher Passover can be used on Passover. Thank God we live in America. It's never been easier in Jewish history. Never easier in Jewish history to keep kosher for Passover. Literally, the everything says, right? OUP, OKP, kosher for Passover. It's unbelievable. So you just need to make sure that everything is kosher Passover. Some things don't need it, right? Fruit doesn't need to be kosher Passover, veggies, eggs, milk. Even meat doesn't technically need to be kosher Passover. We're talking about uncooked, raw stuff. Just buy it all before Passover, okay? You want to buy fish, all these things before Passover. I put in this thing some places you can look if you want to look up different foods and so forth. Other things don't need supervision, like bottled water without flavor doesn't need supervision. Extra virgin cold pressed olive oil doesn't technically need it, but you can buy it with it. But if you can't find good oil, you can use that. Cold pressed extra virgin. And there are other kinds of things that don't need supervision. Tin foil doesn't need supervision. Plastic plates don't need supervision. Plastic forks. But anything that has flavoring or that's processed, you want to make sure has this supervision. And now that you've done this whole process, and this year it'll end on Friday morning. You've made your home totally kosher for Passover. And now it's time to have a great time and to enjoy the Chag. Now, this year, I want to add a little bit of advice. What do you do about Shabbos? It's not Passover yet, right? It's not Passover. It's Erev Pesach. It's Shabbos. Normally, on a Friday night, we sit down. We have challah and delicious meal and schnitzel, whatever else you're going to eat. But I just spent all this time, Rabbi, cleaning the house for Passover. How can I can't bring bread into the house. What am I? Okay. So here's my advice for people living in California, but you can do it any place. I make a little outdoor kitchen with my family for the last basically 2 days before Passover. I put outside a toaster, chairs, tables, whatever, and the barbecue, and we eat all our meals outside so that the kitchen can get cleaned, and anything cooked in the kitchen is already kosher for Passover. On Shabbos, what we do is we have kosher for Passover Shabbos food, but we'll sit outside and eat the challah and then go inside. Or if it's nice weather, we'll eat the whole meal outside on either chametz plates or disposable plates. But this year, it's very important to make sure you finish your meal by 10:30, some say, the Magen Avraham, or the later time by 10:55. So that's the end. You can't eat any chametz after Saturday morning after 10:55 a.m. What are you looking for? We are looking for the chametz, and hopefully we all found it on our search. I just saw a question here. Sorry, I missed it earlier. Other questions about going kosher Passover? Really? I covered everything? It's pretty comprehensive, this piece of paper. And I try to, every year I tweak it a little bit, make sure I get everything. Let me cover a couple things I don't discuss, and then we'll finish off. What do you do about a barbecue? So I get this question asked very often. The problem is with the barbecue is, I don't know about you, but I like to, my family, we really love to heat the hamburger buns on the barbecue. Love it. Which makes the whole barbecue chametz. If you had a barbecue where you never put barbecue sauce, which wasn't kosher Passover, and you only cook meat on it, for example, or only fish, or only veggies, won't be a problem. But most people put things on their grills. You can do this. If you buy new grates, you buy Passover grates, you can make your oven, your barbecue kosher Passover. You need to get up to a very high. You want to clean it, get it to a high temperature, and use new grates. And that is, you can use the barbecue. But yeah, so it's doable. It's doable. What's another common thing that comes up? It has to do with like non-grain spirits, like tequila and vodka, and these kind of things. So today, again, America is amazing. You can buy kosher Passover tequila, kosher Passover vodka, etc., etc. I advise people to not use the kosher for the non-supervised stuff, and I'll tell you why. Because very, very often it's made in a distillery where they make things which aren't which are made with grain. You know, it's very rare that the distillery only does, you know, agave tequila, or it only does, you know, if you've got a distillery, you want that thing churning out lots of product. And so since the chances are that the same equipment and everything and materials are being used for other kinds of spirits, since there is the chance that yours could become contaminated for Passover, so it is best to get something specially supervised. And I'll tell you, there's one more thing I get. Somebody says, I don't like matzah. Okay, we're going to get to that one. We're going to get to that one tomorrow. We talk about the Seder. Every matzah tastes better if you heat it in the oven before Passover, before the Seder. So since it's ideal to not turn your oven on and off on the holiday, you put it on Shabbat mode, or you can heat it up over the stove Saturday night in a tinfoil container. Just warm your matzah in the oven for a couple of minutes. You basically are re-toasting the matzah, and your mind will be blown. It's so much better. It's so much better. It loses that staleness that it got from having been made 6 months ago on, you know, some kibbutz in Israel, and then brought over, you know, via the Panama Canal, and so forth. Okay, I think those are the main things we've gotten to. If you have other questions, of course, you can always email me. Tomorrow night, we're going to do another hour on the Seder, how to have an awesome Seder, how to make sure it's kosher and fun and meaningful. And thank you, everybody. Bye, Facebook, Zoom land.